The episode of House of the Dragon on Sunday night, titled The Dragon in Winter, was surprisingly impressive. It reached a level of excellence that has been missing since the days when Viserys was still around. There are numerous factors contributing to its greatness, but primarily, it's the dragons that stand out. I think I've never witnessed anything quite like what we experienced in this show, either on television or in films. The violence, chaos, and sheer horror were overwhelming. One could almost feel sympathy for Lord Ormond and his intense, madness-laced contempt for everything Targaryen and their wickedly beautiful, perilous creatures. We've witnessed some incredible dragon scenes prior to tonight's episode, but this one felt particularly unique. Aemond and Vhagar ruthlessly pursued the unfortunate young Lucerys and Arrax. The dragons engaged in the Battle of the Gullet. Rook's Rest or Rhaenys on Malaise, crashing through the dragon pit and slaughtering countless small folk. Yet, nothing has quite conveyed the raw, primal fear of the moment in this episode when Rhaena, Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Adam confronted each other, dragon facing dragon. Daemon finds his daughter on Sheepstealer on Caraxes and begs her once more to stay hidden or seek Rhaenyra's forgiveness. Rhaena claims that being alone and cut off from everyone she loves is not a way for her to survive. However, reports of Sheepstealer and a rider have already been made, and the Queen has been informed. When she and Adam of Hull arrive on Syrax and Seasmoke, respectively, Daemon orders Rhaena to run on foot. He tells her, "They'll tear you from the sky." She then flees. Even if it wouldn't have mattered in the end, he might have just told her to stand beside him instead. Daemon was almost completely destroyed by Sheepstealer before two additional dragons and their riders showed up. This is a wild dragon that doesn't listen or obey. Rhaena and Daemon must explain this to Rhaenyra, but I worry that she won't listen because of the depth of her sadness. For dragons and their riders, nonetheless, are a complete surprise. Adam chases after Rhaena, pulling her luggage. When Rhaenyra sees who it is, she is shocked and perplexed, but Sheepstealer's attacks leave little time for anything other than survival. For a brief while, it appears as though the bigger dragon will slay Syrax completely, but Sheepstealer is greatly outnumbered when Seasmoke and Syraxes enter the battle. While Rhaena watches in terror as the other dragons eat and claw at her own, Rhaenyra and Rhaena escape upon Syrax. Even while Sheepstealer is terrifying, there's nothing pleasant about seeing him sustain these injuries, and I believe Daemon realizes that Sheepstealer will undoubtedly perish if Syraxes and Seasmoke continue their assault. He dispatches Adam to protect the Queen's hideout at King's Landing, where he and Syraxes battle the untamed dragon by themselves. After being knocked to the ground, Daemon watches as Sheepstealer drags itself away, shredded, torn, and covered in blood. Naturally, there are more graphic moments in the show besides this compelling and chaotic confrontation between creatures, Targaryens, bastard Valerians, daughters, nieces, husbands, wives, and cousins, all of whom are linked, some in many ways. Oh no. I included Larys, Aegon, and Tywin Lannister in the top image for two reasons. The first is that there aren't any pictures of the dragon combat. The reason for this is that, much to my amazement, all three of these men have emerged as my favorite characters on the program this season. Tywin continues to fight for the way to Casterly Rock, the most formidable stronghold in all the realms, but they have left Rook's Rest and its vagrants and are searching for a ship to transport them across the narrow sea to the free cities and sanctuary. However, they unexpectedly encounter a trickle of refugees down the route, followed by a flood. Small folk fleeing an army out of Maidenpool with whatever they can. However, how might Aegon have been found? They pondered. But as it happens, Tywin is being pursued by the Queen. Tywin and the whereabouts of the gold he concealed from the treasury. Tywin and Larys both advise Aegon to escape in whatever manner possible, but the crippled king declines. The falsehood that his brother killed him will not cause him to pass away in shame. Like a man, he will die on both feet, blade in hand. It looks like Aegon might do the right thing or at least the courageous thing for once. Tywin Lannister promises to die beside to him, which may be as amazing. It's really courageous and honorable, and I believe it's important to remember that the Lannisters weren't always such evil people. However, Larys determines that it's time for him to step down. He can't understand how useful he would be as a cripple, but this is really an excuse. It's not like Tywin, crippled or not, can repel 1,000 armed men. It's difficult to hold the individual accountable for running, yet considering what happens next, maybe Larys ought to have stayed. Lord Ormond's greensleeves are full of twists. He would probably be a gambler if he weren't a semi-fanatical High Lord. He would also be quite skilled at it, but one day he would lose, stab the bastard, and end himself hanging by his neck from a gibbet. Instead of holding Corlys hostage for Rhaenyra, who he knows won't compromise on the elderly man, he sends his finger to his bastard son Alan, after capturing him, in what I thought was a very ridiculous, undeserved scene last week. It remains to be seen if this will actually stop Valerion's participation in the conflict. He keeps his plans a secret from Daeron and Gwaine, who continue to be agitated and irritated with him. We can tell that Daeron is becoming more and more appalled by Ormond's conduct. However, they are unaware of how cunning and astute this man really is. As you can see, he has won over at least one of Rhaenyra's dragon riders to his cause, and we find out that this is not their first encounter. If Ulf the White turns coat, Ormond makes him numerous promises. First and foremost, he should be treated with the respect he never received from Rhaenyra and Daemon, which is accurate. He should also not be humiliated or beaten, and Ormond would never confine a man indoors, preventing him from pursuing manly pursuits like alcohol and women. However, he also promises Driftmark a gift that he is unable to offer and does not intend to give, but it doesn't really matter. Ulf is an idiot, and Rhaenyra is so conceited that she never once thought that mistreating, abusing, and ignoring your idiots could cause them to turn against you when the other side makes large, ridiculous promises. Let's go drink, have sex, and do all the other things Ulf is interested in. Ulf and his dragon have now joined Team Green thanks to Ormond. Will Alan and his Valerian warriors be deterred by the threat to Corlys' life? What about Adam's personal allegiances? He was obviously very fond of Baela, and he now knows that she has been in a romantic relationship with Alan. This beautiful tapestry of treachery, alliance, and incest dreams is full of tiny fights and tears. However, we'll address those in a bit. Some of the Aemond/Alicent, oops, it's actually Alice, stuff will be skipped. This episode they were virtually making fun of us with the Oedipus complex stuff, but I really liked Alice's comment, "You Targaryen boys all want the same thing." I detest Alicent poisoning her own son as well. Actually, I detest this entire dumb plot. I detest that she would consent to it, that Rhaenyra would even think about trying to coerce her into it, and that she seems to have carried out the assassination attempt after leaving King's Landing. Her capacity to quickly move from King's Landing to Harrenhal in the blink of an eye baffles me. However, you are aware of how irritated I am about this kind of thing, particularly when we have suspended travel elsewhere, such as Aegon's trips or Ser Criston Cole's march. It should come as no surprise that it's the worst plot in existence right now. In this program, everything that revolves around Rhaenyra and Alicent basically becomes unbearable. However, I find the Mysaria stuff to be just as annoying. What does her present character arc aim to achieve? Why does she appear so unbalanced one minute and so astute the next? Why does Rhaenyra, who has every right to criticize her machinations, allow her to captivate her with such ease the next minute? This season, everything about Mysaria has likewise been unbearable. I want Helena and her kids to live happily ever after in some idyllic, remote, secure little valley away from conflict, terror, terrible men, and wicked queens. I want Aegon to set aside the crown and board Sunfire with Tyland and Larry so that the three of them can travel the world by air, exploring and having a great time. I want Rhaenyra to see her young son Joffrey and either console him or simply acknowledge his existence. After that, I want her to recall that she has two other boys whose whereabouts she hasn't even inquired about this season. I'm conflicted, though, because I want Daeron to ascend to the throne for the previously mentioned reasons, but I also really want the line of succession to take us to the events of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I suppose you'll just have to wait and see what happens in the remainder of this show for that to happen. This episode was fantastic. It's action-packed, well-written, full of betrayal and some extremely suspenseful standoffs. The only aspects of it that I didn't enjoy were the minor annoyances that have persisted for the entire season, or longer, and I believe that a lot of that is coming to an end, that there's only one episode left, and I think it will be bloody and fiery. Or blood and fire. I'm positive I overlooked something. Every episode has been filled with so much. If so, I'll include it in an update. However, if you have any further observations, disagree with any of my assessments, or think of anything I missed, please let me know. Dearest viewers, what were your thoughts? For more recaps, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Shed Movies.